Okay, in the next part, it says Andreas is hoping to raise $5,000 for charity. How many toques would he need to sell in order to meet this goal? So you put 5,000 in. So 5,000 equals 14x minus 350, and you go through the same process. So you add 350 to both sides. Now you get 5,350. Divide by 14 on both sides. X equals got 382.14, so 383. 382.14 or 383 toques. So there's your solution. 383 toques gets him above $5,000. All right, so the last part, graph the situation. Now here's where I'm going to explain to you how to graph. So very first thing you need to be able to do is you need to make your X and Y axes, and they go on forever in every direction. So we got our axes there, and we need to come up with a scale. So we're looking at Suk making, and he starts off at negative 350. So I know that my y-axis is going to have to go down to negative 350 at least. So what am I going to go by? Maybe 50s. So 50, 100, 152, 253, and 350s right at the bottom. So I'm going up by 50s on my y-axis. And on my x-axis, I've got number of toques. And I remember from previous that I needed about 25 toques to break even. So that's a good number to use. Let's go up by 25s. So 25, 50, 75, 100. There's my toques. I can't go into the negative in toques, so really I don't even need this part of the graph. But I know that I have a y-intercept of negative 350 way down here. And fortunately for me, I actually found out my break-even point was 25. So that means I'm making zero money, but I'm making 25 toques. And obviously I'd want to use a ruler. But there is my graph, and I would continue to make points if I wanted to. Another $350 would go 25 more to the right. So at 50 toques, I would have made $350, and I could have put that point in too. But I really only need 2 points to graph any line, so that's what I did. I did 2 points. One was a y-intercept and another point. So I just wanted to go through that one more time. There's another way of doing it. So again, same idea where I have my X and my Y axis going on forever. And my point down here is my negative 350. That's how much money I have when I've sold 0 toques. The other way of doing it, and it might be convenient sometimes, is you can actually count your slope. So in this case, it was 14x. So if I wanted to go over 1, say that was now 1 on my x, then I would go over 1 and up 14. So I could just count over 1, up 14, over 1, up 14, and I just use my slope to get my next point. I don't necessarily have to sub into the equation and get out an answer. Sometimes you can just use your slope to count your next spot. So I went over 1, up 14, and that worked. That works if your scale fits your slope and you can actually count it properly. If you can't do that because they're large numbers, then maybe it is beneficial to like get another point. So I used my y-axis, my y-intercept, and then I used my x-intercept on the previous example rather than counting my slope. Either of them will work. The basketball example, where I was talking about how the previous units were a lot of skills, the basic skills that you have to practice in basketball, they are the fundamentals. And we're going to move on from the fundamentals and teach you a bunch of stuff that you don't necessarily need to use all those fundamentals to do. Sometimes it's just a foul shot. And somebody can be real good at shooting from the foul line, but not necessarily a good basketball player. Well, here's a section where having those fundamentals and knowing how to do algebra is going to make life a lot easier. So what we're doing here is we're going to look at finding the two intercepts, both the x-intercept and the y-intercept, when you get a line in standard form. So here's what it's going to look like. You've got 4x plus 3y equals 24. I'll back up a bit. 4x plus 3y equals 24. And now we need to find both intercepts, the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So first of all, I'm going to find the x-intercept. The x-intercept occurs when the y-axis is at 0. So an example or a visual of that is the x-intercept occurs when the y value is down to 0. So to be on the x line, your y has to be 0. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sub in a 0 for y. So I subbed in 0 for y, and I end up with 4x equals 24. Divide by 4, divide by 4. X equals 6. Okay, so there's my first value. It's 6, 0 on the graph. So I got a 6, 0 as my x-intercept on the graph. Now I need to find my y-intercept as well. So same process. 4x plus 3y equals 24. Okay, 4x plus 3y equals 24. It's the exact same line. This time I'm going to find my y-intercept. My y-intercept occurs when x is equal to 0. So I'm going to sub in I'm going to sub in 0. I'm going to simplify. Divide by 3, divide by 3, y equals 8. So now I have another point. This time, remember, it's always xy. My x is 0. My y is 8. So 0, 8, and 6, 0. Those are my two intercepts for this particular line. And remember, I can graph this because as soon as I have 2 points on a line, I connect the dots and I have my line. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to graph it. I've got 0, 8 somewhere up there, and I've got 6, 0 somewhere down there. And there's my line.